like you experience these moments that the majority of the population couldn't even fathom, and you have nowhere to put that.
I'm very excited today to be speaking with Aimee Carrero, the star of Code 3. Aimee, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate this.
Thanks for having me.
Honestly and truly, I fell in love with this film hard.
Oh, that's so
Like
nice to hear.
unexpectedly so. Not that I didn't think the film would be great, but it really is. It's smart, it's funny. What excited you to be a part of it?
Well, it's funny because I had a similar experience as you did. So I was just driving in my car one day and I got a call from one of the producers, Justin Baldoni, who I'd met at a dinner years and years before. And he was like, I have this movie, it shoots really soon. Do you think you want to do it? And I said, okay, well, I have to read it. And and he was like, okay, read it and like let me know soon. So I canceled my dinner and I went home and read it and I was like, I have to do this movie. I fell in love with it. I thought it was really well done. I didn't know much about the healthcare industry or EMTs or paramedics. I didn't know the difference between EMT and a paramedic when started this journey. And so I think it was just the writing, and I thought it was a nice mix of really heartfelt, true stories and also just the insanity of the day to day that these folks deal with. This is their reality, and they live this every day. It's just a normal 24-hour, 12-hour shift in their life.
See, I think that's one of the things I find so fascinating about this film is that you could make the argument for some of these sequences that it's broad comedy,
Yeah.
but it's so grounded that you get the sense this is just what an EMS goes through during their shift.
Yeah.
For you, what did you learn about the experience of EMS? How do you prepare for a role like this?
Well, they production set us up on a ride along with the one of the South Central Fire Departments. I think there's a few ladders, they're called ladders. And in Los Angeles County, every fire department responds to health emergencies. They're all EMTs, they're all paramedics. And so we did, we were supposed to do a 4-hour ride along. I ended up staying for 12 hours. Rainn also came along for that. And honestly, it was the best education we could have gotten because we got to spend time with, the firemen that were just, there on I don't know, random Tuesday. And it was an experience I will never forget. We did, I mean, I would say about 2 calls an hour. It was just really intense. Granted, they are the busiest station in Los Angeles County, so we really got to see everything. But one thing that really struck me the most about all of this and coming into this, I couldn't have known had I not had that experience was, you know, these folks are, this is their job, right? And for the people that are on the receiving end of their care, this is maybe one of the worst days of their life, but to them, it's just a Tuesday. So there is a little bit of desensitization. English is my second language. Desensitization that happens that is necessary, and it's crucial for survival, and also that sort of gallows humor makes the day, you know, uh, it, livable for them. And so, I guess to answer your question in the super long-winded way, I realized, they are saving lives every day for very little pay, very few benefits. And a lot of the time, when it comes to servicing the public, they're met with aggression and, you know, um, hostility and, one kind of like one eye kind of squinted at them. So it's kind of a thankless job, and they do it because they have a calling, it's like a vocation, just like anything else, like teaching, I would imagine. They can't not do it. And once they're in it, it's with them forever.
I'm glad you used that word calling because that's sort of what it feels like in this film. This is we watch this team go along and they're constantly facing death, and yet they've got, like you said, this morbid humor isn't necessarily the description I mean, but this disconnect,
Yeah.
which I think is absolutely fascinating, and feels necessary.
hmm Yeah, just
Um,
to get through it. And I think about this a lot when we were spending time with Patrick, who wrote the movie, and he was a real paramedic, and this all comes from his experiences as a paramedic. He was saying something along the lines of, one of the first things he said was like, we never run. We always walk. We walk with purpose, but we never run, because what happens when you run is your cortisol goes up, your nervous system, ratchets, my gosh, I can't speak today. Ticks up in a way that may make your fine motor skills obsolete, and when you're trying to start an IV or something like that, that can really affect the level of care that the patient gets. So it's necessary for these first responders to keep their stress levels low. And I thought to myself, this is probably one of the many reasons why humor is used as a coping mechanism. And again, to them, it's just a Tuesday morning, because you don't want somebody showing up to your house on the worst day of your life when you need help the most to be freaking out. You want them to know what they're doing and to project that kind of confidence. And I think for the lay person like me, it can maybe come off as like, oh wow, they seem to be really cool, calm, collected about it all, but it's necessary for the job. You wouldn't want to walk onto an airplane and have the pilot be like, I hope we make it. You know what I mean? Like, you want to know that they feel good about their skill set. So I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't say this very often. As I was watching it and enjoying the film, I felt like I was learning, and it was
Love
like,
that.
it was like that, little things like that of not running, or little tips that are being passed down to your character along the way. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is why we're doing this. This is
Yeah.
why, because again, this, and it is true. Like in this, I think. I've been taken away in an ambulance and whatnot, but I think it's one of those jobs we take for granted because we just assume it's associated with the hospital.
Yeah, right. And
Um,
it's totally not. I mean, especially in the United States, I could probably put some good money on the fact that maybe in Canada it's not this way, because your healthcare system is more evolved, to put it kindly, than ours. But there are a lot of private companies, private ambulance companies, and things like that, that sort of pick up the slack for the city if maybe there's not enough coverage, manpower, woman power, whatever. Um, and I think that makes it even harder too, because when you privatize something that really should be available to everybody at the same level of care, then you get into tough things like, oh, well, this company pays less than this company, so maybe they're not hiring, the best, or there's no incentive or whatever. You know what I mean? I think that it gets really complicated in that regard. But when you speak to people that are in this line of work, they only want to do their best. You know what I mean? You wouldn't get into this line of work if you didn't care about people. You'd leave immediately. I mean, it's like, it's so hard, and there are so few perks that I would imagine, if you're not in it for quote unquote the right reasons, you're getting out of there. You know what I mean? You find a better paying job.
well, and one of the things I think that comes up in this, I'd love to know your thoughts on the struggle of never being done,
Mm, gosh.
because like this, that just seems to be, it's just an endless stream. Every shift is an endless stream.
Yeah, it seems that way. I actually live very close to a fire station in my neighborhood, and they had like a pancake breakfast the other day, and I walked across, I walked over to them, and I was just kind of retelling my experiences, and and they struggle with that a lot. And where in my area, I guess it's like it's kind of quiet, so it's a lot of guys like that are close to retirement, so they're not seeing that like level all the time, but they never forget. These guys will sit there and tell you stories that happened 15 years ago, and it's like it happened yesterday. Despite their best efforts, and despite that sort of survival instinct of having that veil, that separation, things stick with you, and I think it only contributes to that. What I would imagine would be like a lot of mental health struggles of like, well, every day I put on my uniform, I go to work, and it's people dying or close to death. And they don't even, a lot of the time, they don't even know what happens when they drop them off at the hospital, right? So it's like, who knows? I mean, maybe if it's a busy day, like, you probably don't, even if you go back to the same hospital, you've probably forgotten the person that you wheeled in earlier, unless it's like a child or something that you're really, paying attention to. But that would be really hard to have no closure at the end of the day, would be really difficult.
Yeah, and we see that in Rainn's character as well. Without saying too much, there are moments where he overshares because nobody
Yes.
understands.
Totally. I've never been in the armed forces. I've never been to war. I would imagine it's a similar from an outsider's perspective. It seems like a similar thing, right? Like you go, you experience these moments that the majority of the population couldn't even fathom, and you have nowhere to put that. You know what I mean? So I would imagine it's the same thing as, someone coming back from like a, Vietnam vet or something, or World War II vet, or any a veteran coming home and not really knowing where they fit in because, it's like they have seen the worst of the worst, and now they're just having to, like, in case of Rain's character, sell insurance. You know what I mean? And it's like, talk about your weekend where, so and so took their kids to the mall, and you're just like, reliving that horrible thing that happened 15 years ago, because you haven't had the time to process it, or haven't had the the means or the ability, the access to healthcare or mental health care. That's really tough.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be. Which I mean, I want to come back to this, but since you brought them up, I wondered from taking this like serious issues, and you're working with Rainn Wilson and Lil Rel Howery.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Because that you've got two incredible comedians you're riding with in this incredibly serious film.
Yeah. I knew it was going to be a great experience, because I find that comedic actors are the most gifted dramatic actors. Um, I think that in order to do comedy well, you have to have a real understanding of the human condition. And 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 I think this is no exception. A lot of there's that sort of trope that looks sad clown or whatever. Not that either of these dudes are sad or anything, but there is kind of like, oh, the humanity about comedy. It's like we have to laugh at things that are really tragic a lot of the time. Some of the best humor comes from experiences where we've been at our lowest, or most embarrassed, or, have been having a really hard time. And so I knew that it was going to be at least well acted. You never know how a movie is going to come out, but I knew that I was going to learn something, and that I was going to enjoy myself, and that I was going to learn something from these two guys, and not just on the comedy side. And Rob Riggle's character too. I mean, Rob Riggle, huge comedic actor, and gosh, like, just so gave such a, like, poignant performance in this. So yeah, it was great, and I had a sneaking suspicion it would be that way.
And Yvette Nicole Brown
Oh
is
my
in this as
gosh.
well. I love
Yeah,
her as
just the
well.
best. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can never get over her. I have her phone number, and that to me is like my most prized, like, party thing. I'm like, well, I know about Nicole Brown. But yeah, so it's great. Amazing cast.
And I will say this too, after everything you just said, everybody is great. But just speaking of Rainn, I really think this is a fantastic performance for him. His best work definitely since The Office,
Yes.
but everybody's on point. I think it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think with Rain specifically, I've had the pleasure and honor of working with a lot of, like, great comedic actors, and I think with Rain, and they all tend to be, like, very thoughtful. He's very thoughtful. He's not really what you expect, like, I think once you meet him, you expect him to tell a joke or something, but he's actually really he's a very good listener, and has thought a lot about heavy topics. He's got this great podcast. He talks about death a lot, and about spirituality. And he's definitely, connected to um, a more emotional side than maybe one would assume for a comedian. He doesn't live, like, up here, kind of always waiting to jump on a bit. There are some people that way. He's kind of just like, well, if it comes to me, it comes to me. If not, I'm just going to meet you where you are. And that's it's a wonderful gift as an actor.
and it works well for this film.
Yeah.
This is exactly the type of thing that you need from all of you working together. Just I wanted to ask, this is a word that keeps coming up in the film is heroes.
Hmm.
And we have these underserved, underrated EMS workers, oftentimes neglected from, the medical community and the public.
Yeah.
In your mind, are they heroes, and why?
Absolutely. And I always, the word hero to me is like it's tough because when you grow up when you're a kid, you think a hero like I think like Xena warrior princess, Wonder Woman, you know what I mean? Like all of that. But then when you get to be an adult, I at least have realized that the people we call heroes are the people that are doing something that we feel like we could never do, right? Like I am far too selfish. I am far too inexperienced. I don't have the stomach for it, or I don't have whatever for it, the courage. Um, and that tends to be, a word that we mean to be like, and now I'm calling you a hero. Here you go, right? And then do nothing to kind of help prop those people up and help them do their jobs more effectively and with more support. And so, yeah, I definitely think they're heroes, but heroes are often like tragic figures. You know what I mean? Like they're often in media, in literature, portrayed as these like loners. You know what I mean? Because they're kind of alone in their heroics. They're alone in their sacrifices. And yeah, I think they are heroes, but maybe not in the sort of children's definition, in the definition of like, hey, this word means like they need more support because they're doing something that we can't possibly imagine doing ourselves. Therefore, we should give them the things that they need to continue doing this work that everybody at one point or another in their life is going to need.
I absolutely appreciate that. Honestly, Aimee, as you can see, I truly love the film.
Thank you.
It's just you're wonderful in it. The whole group is great. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank
Code
you.
3.
This was lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was great to chat with you. Have a great day.
You too.